Hello, everyone. Today, I had the good fortune to be speaking with Dr. Quentin Newhouse. Dr. Newhouse has been a college professor and he has published several books. So, without further ado, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to TEP Talks Professional Series, a groundbreaking new podcast dedicated to showcasing the diverse career journey and professional accomplishments of TEP alumni, brought to you by the TEP Foundation. I am your host, Stan Silverman, URI Class of 79, Tau Omega 402. It's my privilege to speak to TEP brothers across a wide spectrum of industries, gaining insights into their fields, advice for breaking in, and a realistic look at the day-to-day work behind some of the most impactful careers in the modern economy. Personally, I found so many of the brothers with whom I spoke to have such interesting stories. I'm sure that in addition to the educational benefit that you will gain from watching and listening to these professionals, the stories that they tell are just plain fascinating. So pick one, anyone, or pick them all. I'm certain that it'll be worth your while. Thank you and happy watching. Good afternoon, brother.
Good afternoon, my brother.
How are you today?
I'm exceptionally doing well. This is great opportunity and a privilege, and I've never met a TEP I didn't like.
That's great. Me too. So tell me a little bit about yourself, please.
I decided, well, I had a lot of people from my high school who attended Marietta. It's a small school in Ohio, about 2,000 students. And the greatest thing about it is my freshman classes were about 25 students. But my senior year, a class of 4 students, Stan, and we had dinner in the professor's house. He fed us and we had class. Amazing. And I started out as a biology major and I ran into calculus, chemistry, zoology, and a couple of the bad courses my first semester. And it was my first time being away from home. I was born in Washington, D.C., which is a large urban city. Marietta is the kind of place shuts down at 9:30 every night, including weekends. If you're downtown and you're a student, the police bring you back on campus. So they told me when I went there, there was 20 miles from Cleveland, 20 miles from Columbus. They left the zero off. It's 200 miles. It's the middle of nowhere. So it took me a while to get adjusted to that, but I started out as a biology major, wanted to go to med school. And after those classes, I decided I would just fish around. So one of my advantages, one of my suggestions, recommendations to students is to take courses that allow them to see various disciplines. So you get an idea what really turns you on. Wow, that really turns me on. I love that class. The professor was good. Class was really good. And I think I could make a living doing that. That being said, I got to my junior year of all places and decided to switch to psychology. I was in pre-med. I switched to psychology. And the first psychology class I took, I fell in love with it. I said, this is awesome. Because I always feel that I was created to help people. That's what I've always felt. And I felt, doing it through medicine was one way. But then when I found psychology, because I love people, I've always loved people. And I said, this is it. So from my junior year to my senior year, I amassed enough credit to get a major in psychology and ended up on the dean's list. So if I want to stay in college. So what happened was of course, during Rush, I went through all the various campuses, all the various fraternities. I didn't like them. They were snotty. I didn't like them for whatever the reason. And then I went to the TEP house and I felt like if you look back at Animal House, a lot of elements of Animal House remind me of the TEP house. They were so casual. They welcomed me in. They talked to me. What I probably say more than once, if you have to stop me, what I was most amazed with, and I'm still amazed with, is the range of TEPs in terms of the years. So what I'm saying is that I graduated in 71, but I have TEP acquaintances back to 66, 65. And I have a little brother who lives in Oregon. He graduated in 71, but he has links to people back in the 60s. He meets other TEPs from other years and they link. And that's so amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. I've never met a group of guys like that. I'll jump around a little bit. The book that we'll get to at some point that has 11 of my brothers in it. When I started the book, I have no biological brothers. I have 2 sisters. I'm between middle child. And my father worked a lot. So I was around a lot of women and I lived in my grandmother's house the first 10 years of my life. So a lot of women around me and my father worked. So I kind of learned how to be a man, kind of trial and error, more trial than error. and a lot of trial. But it's interesting when I decided to do this book in 2014, I made a list of the men who had impressed me over the course of my life, and majority of them were TEPs. Now, given I graduated from college in 1971, I had not seen these guys. It's 2014, Stan. I hadn't seen them since then. Every TEP I called said yes before I could get it out. Yeah, I want to be in your book. My last name is Newhouse. My nickname is House. Said, House, I want to be in your book. They didn't say no. That was most amazing to me. Again, as graduates from 68, 69, all the way to 73. Think about that kind of link we have with each other. And so I lost a lot of male friends. You appreciate this. They walked to me and said, I heard about your book. Why am I not in your book? I said, the book's for real men.
That's 40 years.
Yeah, no, how about that? That's kind of link we
Wow, that's
have.
great.
That's the kind of link we have. We have. Not what we had, but we have. It's just as robust and vibrant as it was when we were in college. And I had not seen them since 1971. Before I could finish the appeal, they said, sure, I want to be in your book. And so that I found most, and again, it's consistent with what we had in college. We had all night parties where we just stay up and see who could stay up the longest, and that person got an award. we had all nighters where we would fall asleep in our books and claim we were studying. Oh man, it was a great time, and we had a great house. We had a house. By the way, the fraternity was so, let's say, so lively. It's no longer on campus. It got kicked off campus. But when we were there, we were wonderful to each other. Guys from everywhere, all over, mostly East Coast, but from everywhere, all kinds of families in terms of, people driving cars like, wow, what is that? That's a Toyota, such and so. Well, that's not supposed to come out till next year when this guy's driving it. Those kind of things. They're very well to do. Other guys not as well to do, but we bonded on the fact that we were TEPs. That was it. And whenever you met a TC, you must be a TEP. People never confuse us with other people from on campus. Say you must be a TEP. And that was consistent through the course of my 4 years there. I stayed in the TEP house for 4 years, yeah, and had I have so many rich memories of the guys that I went to school with. We had all kind of nicknames for each other. We had all kind of aspirations for each other. Always supportive. And I remember I went to school during the '60s. Okay, that was a turbulent time. April 4th, 1968 was the day that Dr. King was assassinated. That day, my brothers surrounded me physically, and they dropped their classes and went to class with me to make sure I was okay. That's the kind of guys I went to school with. And during that turbulent time, I felt no discrimination at all. All I felt and I've ever felt from them is love.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
And I'm glad that I made that decision. I went on after college. I went to graduate school, so I have a master's degree in psychology, and I have a doctorate in psychology from Howard University. Quick story on that. One of my strong suits, I believe, is perseverance. I don't give up, and I'm like a turtle. I'm not that fast, but I'll get there. So the evidence of that, and I'll move on, is that it took me 10 years to get out of a 4-year doctoral program. Lots of problems, lots of challenges. I came out, they thought I was half dead, but I fooled them. And I got out and I ran. But it was interesting. You'll appreciate this. I was not accepted in the program at Howard University. My psych grades were great, but my scores on psych weren't that great. However, what I would want to say to undergraduates is be persevering in what you want to do. If you want to do it and you know there's something you'd love to do, that you would do for free, but most importantly, provides a service, then find a way to do it. So I wrote a letter to the chairman of the department and told him, you guys made a mistake by not admitting me. And they wrote a letter back and said, oh, really? I said, yeah. They said, come talk to us. So I went thinking I was going to talk to the chairperson. They had 4 people there. After 2 hours of grilling me, they said, you're right. We made a mistake. So I got admitted provisionally to the program. And I promised, I said, I'm not going to leave until you take me out of the box. If I can't get the degree, I'll be leaving in the box. 36 people started, but it's only 4 of us finished. But I was determined. I was determined. And I've maintained that throughout the course of my life. Perseverance and believing in yourself is everything. Even though the environment may tell you that you're not anything and you can't do it, if you feel you can do it, you'll find a way. You'll find a way. So after that, I continued. I have enough credits now. I have an MBA candidacy in management. I took that because I wanted to teach. And where I was working, they did not have psychology people. They only had business people. So I took enough graduate courses to teach as a business professor in North Carolina. Now, more recently, I have a license to preach. I can't bury and I can't marry yet, but I'm working on that because I'm counseling some couples. So I have a license to preach. And that's from a group that I've been working with for the last 20 years. It's a group in Sarasota, Florida, and we're teaching biblical classes. So I have a license to preach from them. I just finished a diploma from them in ministry studies and theology. So that's enough about that. But I'm a very, most people meet me. I don't introduce myself as Dr. Newhouse. I don't do that. I don't wear my degree on my shoulders. It's a gift. It's a privilege. It's a blessing. I've tried to use it where necessary, where I try to open doors with it. But I have a lot of my former, by the way, I've taught over 10,000 students in the time that I've been a professor, because I taught at 16 different universities. And what I found is quite a few of my students are professors or teachers. I try to inspire them. And I hear from them every now and then. Father's Day, I hear from most of my students. And they'll send a little shot across the bow. But I learned the hard way that I could not attend graduations at the school where I was teaching, because I couldn't bear the thought that I would never see those people again. And they always said to me, "Well, we will see you. We'll keep in contract." They never did. So I never went to graduations. So
I think that the undergraduates need to know.
Okay.
There are
Yeah.
very few jobs that one can get with a bachelor's in
That's
psychology.
correct. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I had that experience. I had students that had that same experience. There are things you can do with a bachelor's degree in anything you can do with a bachelor's degree in psychology. The distinction is at least a master's degree.
Okay, so did you have a plan when you decided to get a bachelor's in psychology that you were going to get a doctorate? And what did you plan to do with that doctorate?
Once I started taking classes, this is another thing I would advise. I would advise, if once they select a major, they find a professional association and affiliate with that professional association, because the student membership is cheaper. And I had an opportunity to actually present a paper at a professional association as a student. So I affiliated myself with other people who I met at the conference and my professors. Okay, I would tell students, attach yourself to a professor, someone, male or female, who you feel has your best interest at heart, so that he or she can tell you, this is the outlook for this, what you're in. If you're in child psychology, this is the outlook for that. I'm doing something in a hospital, they may say, and we're not hiring people in that area, so don't go in that area. Or I just came from a professional conference, they're not hiring people in that area. So affiliate with people who are already in the field. Find a mentor. Find someone who's willing to try to champion your cause and shepherd where you're going. That's what I would say. Don't go in blindly or go in alone, because they'll tell you don't go in that direction. But you need at least a master's degree in psychology. The greatest thing about psychology is, and there's so many different subfields in psychology. I'm a member of the American Psychological Association, which is the overarching group of psychologists in the world. And there's so many, they call them subdivisions. There's so many that are out there. There are prevailing trends where you can figure out, what's the going trend now. Neuropsychology is a going trend, but at some point that's going to also be filled. But just keep your ear open to what's going on through the mentor opportunities. Secondly, mentor with your colleagues. You might be sitting next to another Zuckerberg. You don't know. You never know. You could be sitting next to another Zuckerberg, the guy you gave a sandwich when he couldn't afford to buy McDonald's. He remembered that, or she remembered that. So affiliations are very important. I did that through the fraternity, when I was in the fraternity. So yeah, that's the thing. And then get a PhD. It's opening doors. I aged myself. I have my PhD since 1980. It's still opening doors. It's the highest degree you can achieve in the area. It still opens doors. It takes a lot to do that in terms of sacrifice and commitment and actually understanding politics. But if you can get it, that's the best route to take. And I realized that at the bachelor's level.
And what did you plan to do with that doctorate?
Again, I wanted to teach.
Okay.
I come from a family of teachers, and I
Okay.
wanted to teach because I think that teaching is an honorable profession. It's not something you necessarily get rich doing, but it's an honorable profession. I've seen students light up. My classes always seem to fill because I always use humor in my classes. And I saw them light up. And I saw kids who never were interested in anything light up when they realized that they wanted to be in the psychological or the health services field. So, and I knew that because of the way I love people and can relate to people, I thought I would be a good teacher. And again, because of my passion, if nothing else, they would accept my passion. I knew that's been contagious for me. is my passion for what I do because I love it. I haven't done it in a couple of years, but I love it. And so if you're so inclined that you want to teach, and because I would start classes like, I'm ready to teach. Are you ready to learn? And I found that students responded to that. And I asked them near the end, what did you learn today? So yeah, once I realized I wanted to teach, I had to have the passion to figure out where and how. And once I had problems in the bachelor's degree. I got some challenges in my master's degree, but when I got my doctorate, there were no problems. I taught at more than one university, wasn't a problem because it's the highest degree you can achieve in your field. And that's what I recommend for any major you have. Get the highest degree you can because it opens up the opportunities. Even now, that's what, 40 years ago. 40, it's still opening doors.
What are some of the classes that you teach?
Group dynamics, developmental psychology, which is children, industrial organizational psychology, which is popular. I taught statistics, one of my specialty statistics and research methods. There's a seminar class, the whole range. I've taught everything from the beginning to the end. There's now they have things like space psychology. You know, they have neuropsychology. There's introductory courses and advanced courses. I could teach all the way from the bachelor's level to the doctoral level. And also, by having a doctorate, I've sat on several doctoral dissertations and also master's dissertations. So you can see as people are coming along, you can help them. You know, my goal is to help them get to the end, not necessarily stop them or necessarily impress them with what I may or may not have done. I've always been that way. When I was in administration, I stoked the pen several times and got in trouble because there were people who couldn't take the class because they had failed it more than once. But I got them a tutor and I overrode the system to put them in, and they finished the program. Had I not done it, they would not have finished the program. You know, and so I saw both sides. I said I've seen the faculty side, but I've been a student, so I know what you're going through. And I had professors who were the same way. So I try to emulate my better professors and made sure I was never like the ones that I thought shouldn't be teaching. Yeah. But I love what I do. But I knew what I had to do once I got my bachelor's degree. I just had to figure out how. That was a challenge. How.
Okay, that's great. So you're not the only professor, the only educator who's moved from more than two or three schools. Why does that happen?
Well, that's a good question. The key for universities now and still is tenure. Tenure is a wall. It's a wall. It's designed to determine whether you can get published articles. That comes from knowing the right people. That's why affiliation is so important. If you know the right people who are on the board or who are sitting there reviewing your articles, Stan, a lot of those articles, 95% of them are rejected. But I've seen a lot of garbage that was published. A lot of the 5% is garbage. So tenure is a wall. And the thing about it is people have to really like you in order for you to get tenure. So I went places where I was young. When I was teaching, I was 30. So I was really young. And a lot of people said, you're too young to have tenure. I didn't know why that was the case. Even one situation, I put up my tenure package. It was nice and tight. And they just said, you're just too young. So the politics have a lot to do why people move. I moved around because of politics. And then I moved different places because I just moved. I wanted a choice. And again, I'm the kind of person, if I see people that are above me that I feel like I have to work with the rest of my life, I make a decision. I don't want to be here for 20 years with you. I really don't. You know, I'm locked in with you for 20 years. I don't think so. So I moved. I moved because of that. And I wanted diversity of working. Some places I work had every tool I needed. Some places I work had no tools. I had to bring everything, chalk, everything. But the key issue is I wanted to make sure that I was stimulating students, and I was looking for the opportunity to become part of different faculties. That's a short answer. And then a couple places I had some issues because I kind of speak my mind, you know, and a couple places I got set up because I had everything. I was a junior faculty with everything. I had only person in the university with money. I had $8,000 of travel. You know, I had $100,000 grant. Nobody else had that in the whole university, and they got jealous and they came after me. You know, and so you have to look out for being bushwhacked. You have to be very careful about covering yourself. I think diversity is probably the major reason that I moved around. And again, I wanted to see different experience. I'm not going to be promoted here. I don't want to be promoted here. So someone called and said, "Hey, we've got a place here. Do you want to come?" I'm like, yeah. All up and down the East Coast and the states, I've taught different places. You know, all up and down the East Coast. Some were exactly the same. Some were totally different. Depended. but I've always enjoyed the opportunity to teach. And I've taught online quite a few places. I didn't add that to the places I've taught online. So, but I love to teach. I love this. I love to see students either change their majors to psychology or the light comes on. Is that what that? Oh my! Is that what that is? Yeah, that's what it is. It's called insanity. I had these amazing moments in classroom history where students got up and did remarkable things. I had a student, I said, here, teach the class. I said, you have so much to say, teach the class. Here's the chalk. I'll pay you for what I would normally make today. He took off. He's a professor now. He took off. I'm like, you're amazing. You got to teach. So, but it's a passion I have. I don't take myself too seriously. I tell my students I learn more than I've taught you. Your feedback to me is richer to me than I taught you. One semester I talked about you guys are going to drive me to drink. I said you keep. So at the end of the term, you know what they did, Stan? I got
Took you out drinking.
no, I didn't. I got a flask. I got a Stein. The flask had my name engraved on it. Said, "Please, if you're going to drink responsibly." Everybody gave me these little things. My best thing about teaching all the things I got from students. 17 of my students took me out to dinner and gave me a plaque to thank what I've done. That's one of the major things I loved about teaching. But one of the cautions I would give is if you're teaching, maintain the distance between you and your students. They're never your friends. They're never your equals. They're your students, and they should respect you as their professor. Over the course of the years I've taught, I saw that kind of dwindling. Hey, dude, that kind of, no, I'm your professor. No, if you know me, it's Quentin, but if it's not, it's Dr. Newhouse. That I always put that between myself or a professor or whatever it was. I put that between us because I found over the years students kind of breached that. They walk out of class. They would confront you in class. I noticed the decline in that respect, and I know that happens across academia, not just in colleges, but also probably in elementary school and other schools as well. So one of the things I would say, if you get in that position as an instructor or a teacher, maintain the distance. Age has nothing to do with it. Even the background has nothing to do. You are the professor. You are in charge. You're the instructor. You're the one that's been hired to do that, not them. So don't let them take over. Don't let them be too favorable with you. Don't get too close. I've learned that the hard way a couple of times, but I learned it. But it's an honorable thing to do. You may not get rich doing it, but you will see students' lives change. And again, the opportunity I had, Stan, which was amazing. I knew about families. I had parents call me. Where's Joe? I haven't seen him in 2 weeks. I just saw him. They said, "Tell him to call home." I said, "Come here, Joe. Take my phone call. This is call back home. Your parents haven't heard from you." That kind of relationship I had with the students and their families. That was rich to me as well. It happened. We heard about you, and you helped my son. My daughter's here now. Can you help her? That kind of thing. That was rich. It had nothing to do with the money. It was the relationships point. So my career has been punctuated with these great opportunities, including this one, to share what I really love, which is life and the opportunity to learn. I'm a learner. You see that with all these degrees. I got more degrees than names because I love to learn. So and again, I love to experience other people's opportunities and challenges and successes, and I learn from that more than anything else. But what I would tell students, because I've taught almost 10,000 students. And over that, I learned there's some students I could see they really had a zest for life and for achievement. Others didn't have it. It just wasn't a good time. It just wasn't a good time to be in college. Maybe their parents paid for it and they were there. Don't go to college because people are forcing you to. Go because you want to go and want to learn. If it's not for you, then convince whoever it is that might be financing it. This is not for me right now. Maybe I'll come back later. Because a lot of basketball and football players come back after they've been in professional careers and they get the degrees. They don't have the pressure. So don't put pressure on your kids. And let parents put the pressure on you just to be in college. It's more than that. It's a great experience because you have these scholars who are there, who may be some students or maybe the professors who really have something to teach you that you can't get outside of college. And the good thing about it, it forces you to learn it in the context of a semester or a term. Some of the things I learned, I wouldn't sit down and just open a book and go through that book and say, oh, I learned this and that. But to sit there for 12 weeks and be forced to learn and forced to take a test that shows the level of my knowledge at that moment is a gift. And to some extent, it may shield you from the outside world so you can focus on that. But we got some brilliant people coming out of these schools. And a lot of them are young. They're young people who have, I saw a guy the other day, he's, what is he? He's I guess neuro something, but he's very young. He looked like he was about 17. This guy got several MD degrees. And when he opened his mouth, you could tell this guy was brilliant. But you can see he understood the value of education. Education teaches you that there are a variety of things you can do in life. I've reinvented myself many times. More times than we have time to talk about. I reinvented myself because this is something new I want to do. I feel I've achieved as much as I can in this area. I want to try something else new. And again, because what I had from before, I integrated that into the newer opportunity. So don't be afraid to get in and fail. I got some F's on my transcript. Yeah, I do. I don't hide those. But those were learning experiences. They were learning experiences. And I could evaluate why I got that F. Even professor telling me my freshman year, are you sure you belong in college? I'm like, well, yeah. He said, I gave you extra 10 points and still your average is 20.
Here's a gift.
But you know what? He saw me graduate and he saw me get my doctorate. He saw that. Okay. I didn't go back and rub it in his face, but he saw that because I knew myself. That's another thing. Know yourself. You know what's good for you. You know, nobody does Stan better than Stan, really. And so know yourself and know what it is you really want. Find out what you want out of life. Dig for it. You know, dig for it till you find it. It's there. Everybody's created for a reason. Dig for it till you find it. And when you find it, dig it up and go at it passionately. Passion. I love to see excellence. When I see excellence in someone who mastered their craft, it's an excellent thing to see because you see them, they put in the work. That's what I'll say. Put in the work. Don't believe in luck. Don't believe in chance. Put in the work. You put in enough work and you evaluate this feedback you're getting that's relevant, you'll get to your goal.
Let's go back to the teaching in the college.
Okay.
I had heard it's publish or perish.
That's it. That's what I was telling you. Yeah. That's a tenure wall.
Okay.
And see what it have to do. That's called peer reviewed. That means that there are people who already published a lot of stuff. It has to go through that wall. But what happens to a lot of people who get stuff published, it's their professor. It's their former professor who's sitting on that board. Sitting on the board. So yeah, so that's one of the struggles is the publish or perish. And a lot of my colleagues really have a lot of physical ailments around that because you're given a certain amount of time to do that. And you find younger people come in who had the experience of writing, who go right past you to the senior levels. You have assistant professor, you have associate professor, and full professor. So that's an issue of publishing and perishing. And again, it has to be a journal where whoever it is that's judging your tenure package, they have to prove that is an acceptable journal. Because you can publish someplace you can pay money to get it published. You can pay 50% or 100% and get it published, but it's not peer reviewed. Like Psychology Today, you would not get tenure in Psychology Today because it's a popular magazine, like Washington Post. You could do all kinds of things in Washington Post. It's not in the field. So supposedly the scholars in the field look at this because they're on the boards of the journal. They make the decision. That's the publish or perish. And it's really very rigid and very rugged. But I have a colleague in North Carolina, and she's got 4 pages of stuff she published. She's amazing, an amazing writer. And she does public health. And she's an amazing writer. She can sit down and write like 10, 20 pages, just blinking. She's an amazing writer. I'm not that amazing. You know, she's an amazing writer. But that's one of the things I had that ready to do. And when it was not received in the way I wanted to, it then becomes important to me to have tenure. That's another reason I left. It wasn't that important because I didn't want to get stuck. Once you get tenure, a lot of people get lazy and they get students to write stuff for them. It happened to me a couple of times. Students write things for them. They're not as vibrant or as assertive about updating themselves by presenting at conventions or getting into the latest literature. Some people get a little lazy once they get tenure because once beyond the door of that, you're safe. It's hard to get rid of people who have tenure. So yeah, that's a wall, and in my opinion, it wasn't worth it. So I go with my gut. I tell students all the time, go with your gut. Sometimes your gut is so reliable and you don't realize that it's reliable. But what's most important is make sure as you're in college, you're learning what you need to survive. If I couldn't get a job in psychology, guess what? I was at McDonald's. I was working at McDonald's. I did what I had to do. I didn't say I'm going to starve because I can't find a degree. If I can't find work in the area where I have a degree, I worked until I could find an area, a job in my field. And when I got in there, I was the first person there and the last one to leave. I put in the work, and I made sure people saw this guy's a worker. He's going to work. He's going to work for his money. One place I worked was funny, Stan. The job was over at 5 o'clock. At 4:30, the place was empty. It was empty. I mean, there was air by your desk. They were gone. And if you stood by the door, you could get run over at 4:45. They got out of there. And they would say, "You don't pay overtime. I'm not going to do overtime." But I wasn't like that. I got there early and stayed late. My dad told me $1 work for $1 pay. You give them the work. And a lot of people tell me another reason I've changed universities. I've had staff come to me, Stan, and say, "You got to stop working so hard. You're working too hard. You're making us look bad. If you don't stop, we're going to set you up. We're going to set you up because we don't work that hard here. We've been here a long time. You're making us work too hard." So I'm working for what I feel I'm getting paid for. So since you're putting pressure on me that I feel is unnecessary, I'm going to leave because I have options. And normally when I left one university, people had heard about my work, or the students had told other students had told other students, other schools about my work. And that was enough for me. That was enough for them to hire me. I got a cute joke for you. I have a professor, let's say his name is Newscomb. My last name is Newhouse. Students said, "Boy, doctor, you were so good. You were a great professor. I enjoyed your classes. You had great humor. Dr. Newscomb, you were fantastic." And my name is Newhouse. So they put the pen in my they put a pen in my balloon. I'm like, never again will I puff myself up. Yeah, and I've had to pull a couple of professors out of classes and reassign them to something else because the students they were lined up in front of my office. Get him out of here. He's I don't want to take anything he teaches, and he cannot teach. I've had students tell me that. And so, yeah, so what I used to do is if I had a new professor, I would sit in the class. I'd sit in the class for at least 2 or 3 classes and let the student know this is his first class. He may not be your instructor. Okay. So we're going to see how this goes. And I would pass out a little survey. Don't put your name on it. And I looked at the survey. He stinks. I fell asleep 3 or 4 times in his class. He taught me something, and I went back and looked at it, and it was wrong. So when I did, I said, "Well, the students are saying, and I observed for myself, that you're having some issues with the class, and they don't. I feel like we need to pull you from this class. Maybe it's too advanced for you, or maybe it's just not a good fit right now. So I'm going to pull you from the class." But I didn't wait till midterm to do that. But he's right. So there's some professors who just are good communicators who do well, but there are, in the main, quite a few who are really bad. I had a few of them as a student, but I had a few as a faculty member, as a chairperson who could do that. But I didn't wait too long. If they were new, and I had a couple of people fresh out of school that I would not put in the classroom. I had them observe and be mentored before they taught. Yeah, he's absolutely right. They have no business in the classroom. I don't care where they came from, or what kind of grades they had, or whatever. If they didn't have the experience and have the sensitivity. You have to be sensitive to so many things about students. Where they are, what they're feeling, their perception of you. Their perception of what's happening in the school, the environment. You have to be aware of that, tap into that, and be sensitive to that to really get their attention. And once you get their attention, and they know that you're committed to teaching them, they're ready to go.
What were some of the highlights and lowlights of your teaching career?
The highlight was the feedback I received from students. I received a few standing ovations.
Wow.
That was amazing. Standing ovations. I had students that were grabbing their ribs, laughing so hard. I had them laughing so hard. If I really got them going, they were laughing hard. I had students who asked me, "What else do you teach? What other classes do you teach?"
That's great.
I had classes that filled, and they had to change it. The limit was 25. They had opened it to 35. The students were pressuring, "I got to get in this class." Um, I had highlights. Again, I got stuff from my students. Every semester I got something. I don't know what I did with everything, but I got something. I got, like I said, one semester I got a Stein. I got a mug, coffee mug. It said "Drink responsibly." I got about 10 different things from the class as gifts. I got all kind of cards I got from my students. I got those are the highlights. And then being able to teach something that I never taught before, that I got the book like a week before. And I had students say, "What's that in page 30?" I'm like, "Let's get to page 30. They didn't realize I hadn't read page 30 myself. So getting the book in short time and being able to teach like I'd already read the book, that was a highlight. The fact to learn, the book is current, so I can learn from the book. That wasn't the case when I was in grad school. I didn't know that about this person who's done all this work since I got out of grad school. So the book learned me to update myself. And then just watching students grow like flowers. Something hit them in class and it just changed their lives. Or you see the light bulb came on. I had students that no one else could teach, but I taught them because if you went to sleep, I was on the other side of the room. I never stayed still. And I had antics that I used, all different type of antics, jokes, anecdotes, things I use that I know what students would laugh about because I put it on their level. I said, this is your level. And those are the highlights. The lowlights were people that I felt were unprofessional, unethical, unfriendly, um, weren't even interested in collaboration. Can you help me on this? I'm not sure. This is not working. Look at this chapter and maybe give me some feedback how I might present that better because it really didn't go well. But sit in my class. You have a class before mine. Sit in my class for me. If something's not working, I'd appreciate your feedback. No, there was, fiefdom. It's another one. Also, if you're not from Harvard or Yale or Princeton, you can't be good. Those kind of things. So the assumptions people have, you're a black man, you can't teach. You got a PhD. You're Mr. Newhouse. All those little kinds of things that are irrelevant to higher education. I hated them. I hated long meetings. If I was a chairperson, I said the meeting's from 2 to 3. You came at 3:15. The meeting was over, and I said, where? I said, you go get the minutes because I'm not going to do that. The little games. I had one job. I worked at nightstand from 4 to 10 at night. Our supervisor made us sit in our office from 8 to 5. So that was trapping us from going and getting a collaborative, outside consulting activities because that was her. The personalities. There are a lot of people I've worked for and with that really need to be committed. They really did. I'm not a I'm not a clinical psychologist, but they really need to be committed. They were really crazy. I mean, certifiably crazy. And they're professors. They're tenured professors. They're administrators. That was the low part. And then the fact that people often can't deal with my energy level. I'm 76, and my energy level is higher than it was when I was 50. People are like, what are you drinking? What are you smoking? I'm smoking life. I'm, I'm drinking life, man. I'm happy to be alive. Why are you so happy? I've got all kind of challenges, physically, psychologically, um, professionally, any way you want to go, fiscally, anywhere to go. But I love life. And when I got in front of the classroom, that was a privilege. I got 45 minutes to get your attention, to give you some information you don't have. I don't think you have this. If you have it, then tell me. Or if I say it wrong, challenge me. But if you challenge me, you got to back it up because I'm prepared. I'm prepared for what I have to do. So the low light was lack of respect, the lessening of respect. People walking out of my classroom, they just got walked out. People I could see outside during class time playing around. They should be in class. It was a deep the respect lesson over time. That was the low light. And then again, the jealousy of colleagues. Jealousy of colleagues because I was and always will be concerned about the students. I'll always be a student. So I know the things you shouldn't do to students because you shouldn't do them to people and certainly not to students. They're vulnerable in a lot of ways. And so you shouldn't convince them to do things that are unethical and unprofessional. That's the summary, yeah. And I hate that about what I've experienced over the course of my teaching career.
Would you recommend students go into teaching, whether it be in elementary or high school or as a college professor?
Yes, yes, as long as they get some idea what they're going into. I've done some substitute teaching in high school. And I asked the principal, what should I do? What should I do today? I'm really excited. He said, make sure they don't kill each other. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? He said, yeah, try to keep them apart and make sure they don't kill each other. So, I'm going along. So one day I had to do physical education. I'm in physical education now, and they're playing dodgeball. When I was a kid, dodgeball, you hit them on the side or hit them on the foot. These guys were aiming each other's heads.
Yeah.
And they were throwing the ball, knocking them down. I said, that was his head. That's not dodgeball. But if you know what you're getting into and you have the commitment, the answer is yes. Even professors, we didn't make a lot of money. I didn't get rich off of teaching. I didn't. The range is like $38,000, $40,000. It's a lot for what you have to go through. Sometimes even if you're low on the totem pole, you get more classes. You may get 5 classes, and 2 of them are back to back. And they're full. The classes are full. And plus you don't get the plum classes. You get the introductory classes, the one no one else wants to teach. You get those classes, and you're expected to teach them with the same zeal as if that's my baby. If I could teach that class, okay, but no, you can't because everybody else wants it. What's left over is what you teach. So if you're aware of the realities of teaching, that it's not going to be easy. The fact that you know that kids now are different now than that was the case maybe even 5 years ago. With the texting and the bullying and all those other kind of things and the violence in classroom. If you're willing to risk all of that for the potential that some child might have his or her life turned around by the fact you really cared and the fact that you were a good teacher. Wow, he really knew that material. And he wrapped it around his personality. He wrapped it around daily experiences. And he made me want to run to his class, student run the class. And they ran the class. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I want to make sure I get a good seat." They did that. I saw that because they knew that I was sincere, and they knew that I cared. But that's my experience. Yeah. So if I had to do it again, I'd do it. Yeah.
How long does it take you to prepare for a 45-minute class?
Me about 3 hours.
Wow.
3 hours. Because what I do is I go to the end of the chapter and I look at I go to the beginning of the chapter, look at the outline. I go to the end of the chapter and look at the summary. I then go get all the definitions that I need from that chapter. And I look at little terms, like connective terms, like this and that, or this or that, or first, second, third, fourth. I look for those little connecting terms if they're in there, and I pull those out, and I make an outline from that, and I teach from that. And once I've taught it once, I'm dangerous. Once I've taught it once with the same book, oh, I'm dangerous. I can say page 80 says this. How do you know that? I'm like, well, it's on page 80. They don't know. I just taught that a semester ago. So once I've taught it, I'm dangerous. But yeah, the first time through, and I make sure that I don't get beyond what I know. So if a student asks me, let me make a note to get back to you on that. Because what I'm saying to myself is I haven't read it yet. We'll get there, but I haven't read it yet. But yeah, about 3 hours usually.
Wow.
Usually. Yeah, to really get it, because I know that I have to really get it under my belt and I open the book when I teach. The book is marked. I open a book when I'm teaching, but I also have an outline. It says this is what this is. This is the definition, and that makes it work. Yeah, I have really much more than that, but part of that's experience. I've been teaching so long. When I started, it took a little bit longer, but once I had an opportunity to teach 3 or 4 different classes I had never taught before, I knew I had to get it. I didn't have a chance. Couldn't stand in front of the class, the first class, and go like, nah, I'm not idea where I'm going. I couldn't do that. They would swallow me whole. They would go after me. So I had to ask. I tell people all the time, it's important to look like you know what you're saying. It doesn't look like it. So when I said something, my voice went down. It didn't go up. If it went up, they said, "Uh-oh, we can challenge him." And I saw the students were trying to challenge me, so I made sure that I wasn't challenged in the classroom. You got other questions, come to my office. If I made a mistake, tell me, and I'll say I made a mistake. I'll correct it, but it's not the end of the world. Yeah, but about 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours, at most 3. Yeah,
Wow.
per chapter, per chapter. And again, I looked at the fact these are 4 chapters in this section. Okay, so maybe I have to go to the 4th chapter to see if the 4th chapter integrates the other 3 chapters. If it's a good book, the book helped a lot. The book was lousy. It was more challenging. But oftentimes the guy would say, follow this outline. Section 1 does this, section 1 does this. It gave me like a roadmap of where the book was going. So when I spoke not only from where I was, but where I thought the book was going to go next. I always give them like a preview. This is next. So they thought, wow, they thought I really understood it, but I was trying to tell you, this is where we're going, but I'm not there yet myself. And the students could tell. After a while, they could tell. And I said, no, I haven't read it yet, but I will. I will. And I said, where's your homework? They said, I didn't turn it in. Okay, well, then don't ask me questions like that. Students know I jam things down their throat in a minute. How can you criticize me for that? You haven't done it. How could you do that? I'm real. I had some issues, the excuses, the issues, but I'll be better next class. This class didn't go that well. I feel like it didn't go well, but I'll be better next class. There's a lot going on, so that wasn't my best. I gave you what I had, but I could do better. So unless you want to drop the class, and next week's the last time to drop the class. But if you don't drop the class, stick with me. I'll have some good days and bad days, but I think the bad days will be lesser than the good days. And you're the same way. This is real. I'm a real person, and I'm doing the best that I can. So I would take some honest feedback from you, but don't get critical. You get critical. Here's the chalk. Teach the class. And most of the time I offered the chalk, they never got up. One got up one time. He said, I'll never do that again, because I said, it's not easy, because I have to keep your attention for 45 minutes. It's difficult, especially now with kids. They have short attention spans, and it's easy to lose them. They'll start texting, and I'll say something, and then I'll ask the kid what I just said. He was like, I got no idea. I said, yeah, you were texting. I said, do that outside the classroom. Don't do that in the classroom. That's disrespectful. I won't do that to you. Be respectful. So if you can't be respectful, then leave. It's okay. It's here's the last thing to drop the class is 2 weeks from now. You should drop it today. They won't charge you as much. If you don't want to be here, don't be here. It's okay. I never got in trouble for that. But if you want to be here, I'm here to learn. One other thing, a couple of times I left the classroom, Stan, because the students were so disruptive. But I knew there were people in the classroom who were adult students who worked really hard to be in the class. They sacrificed a lot. And when I left, those students corrected the class. They said, look, I have to work hard to be here. So stop interrupting the instructor. You got a problem with him, go to his office, but stop interrupting the class. I want to learn. I did that 3 or 4 times because the class was getting disruptive, and I couldn't handle them. I knew they could handle each other because I saw some cues from some of the class members, like, you need to go. We'll get this straight. They were older members of the class, adult students returning to the class. They corrected the whole class. So I used the energy, always use the energy of the class. Sometimes the class was down. I had to act a little bit more to get them up. Sometimes they were up and I could say my name, they start laughing. So it works. It works. It's a beautiful thing. Teaching is a beautiful thing. If you do it well and you really care, it's beautiful. It's like artwork. It's like a comedian, you wrap them up. They don't see which way you're coming from. You wrap them up and they think you have them, you come right back around and wrap them the other time. I've seen them leave with stars in their eyes. I've seen them walk into the wall. I've seen some miraculous things, that happen as a result of what I shared with them. And I always go deep. I go deep and I share something with them. I say, I bet you don't know this. And I say, if you do, raise your hand. And of course, they don't know what it is. They don't raise their hand. and so I use my sense of humor, and I use the fact that I really care and my sincerity about what I'm doing. I don't take it lightly that I have an opportunity to stand in front of these students. That's why if I get another opportunity to teach, which I'm working on now, I'll do that. Because I do have people who can recommend that they were my students and professors now. And I had one student who told me what I taught him in 1986. I couldn't remember that. I don't remember that. He told me, he said, you taught me this in 1986. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. I'm like, wow. He's living with that when I taught him that. And I see him from time to time. He's still, when I go to Washington, D.C., we always get together. 1986, one of my male students. And I have several male students. I got about 10 of them. Keep track of me. They check on me. Every now and then they'll text me or they'll call, how you doing, doc? That kind of thing.
That's great.
And I've been speaking and getting more speaking opportunities. I found that when you show that you are sincere about what you do, and humility, I don't take myself seriously. Humility. I was created to teach. I was created to learn, and that's what I am: an eternal teacher, an eternal learner. I'm not here to impress you. I'm not here to have you bow down to me. I have a message for you that I want to share. So if you can take something from that and live a better life, then I've achieved what I came here for. But I'm not coming here for you to throw down palms and me to run over the palms. I'm not here for that reason. So I have to clear that up from the beginning. And I tell students all the time, there's things you may know better than I do. Just be careful how you present it. Just present that. This is the way I heard that. Okay, let's challenge that. What do you challenge that with? What's that backed up with? And I come back and say, I stand corrected. You're right. I was misinformed, or I didn't read that the way you read it. So you were right. And I have no problem doing that. But just don't stamp that, don't go further than that. You're a bad professor. No, I made a mistake or I misread something. That's all it is. So yeah, and again, yes, that. So when the light comes on in people's heads, when the light comes on about something that I didn't understand, I never knew, and you see it come on and it changes the way of thinking. Critical thinking, that's the other thing. I found that's law. Critical thinking, integrity. Yeah, but what I did with students when I wanted them to leave, Stan, I get up and go to the door, open the door of my office, stand at the door. It's time to leave. They didn't get it. I walked out of the office, left. But I know that was one of my challenges. You don't ever get in a room with the female student and close the door. Doesn't matter how far your secretary is away from you. You don't know what is set for you, that you just fell into a trap and you didn't realize. You were too naive to realize that was a trap. So yeah, I'll advocate that with anyone. Don't do that, and don't assume that the students are not your friends. Some of them will cut your throat, just like a colleague will. And so a lot of times you have to be careful. Like I said, you can get set up. They'll set you up with a student or they'll set you up with each other. One will say something, oh, Quentin said this. Really? Yeah, he did. He did. And they take that and run with that without getting it validated. Yeah. So again, there's nothing, there should be uh, personality tests for professors. There should be ethics tests for professors, and there should be some kind of qualifications. I mean, you should show, something about what you're teaching. What do you know? What's your level of knowledge here? And then assess them at the end of the term to see there should be some kind of changing that. If it's the same as it was at the beginning, like you'll never teach that class again. I'm pulling you from that class. Yeah. So it's the environment's changed significantly over time, but it's a hollowed place. Universities and colleges, institutes are hallowed places that are designed to give you the safety to some extent and the space you need to learn something that should change your life. Everything I've ever learned, Stan, I find an application for it. If I can't, I'm not going to keep it. I don't see the point. What's the point of that? Tell me the point. Okay, I can live on that. But if I can't find an application for it, it's not relevant. Even my poems, I can't remember my poems. They came out, but I don't remember. They're my babies. They came out, but I don't remember. But they were based on something I was feeling at the time. Go back and read them. It rekindles that. And I found over time, most of what I learned is in a book. I go to the book. There's very few things I can pull out of my head now. I go to the book and pull it out of the book. And then the book opens up the rest of what's behind that somewhere in my subconscious. So yeah, it's a stressful time for professors. There are a lot of professors under stress from that publish or perish. And the fact that students are so aggressive now. They're aggressive. They really are. What they say, how they treat you. It's disrespectful, particularly with what it takes for us to get in front of the classroom. It takes a lot. Whether it's education, experience, whatever it is, it takes a lot. And then to assume that what you're going to teach them has some value to them, you make that assumption. I left this out, but I put this in because I'm assuming this is what you really need to know. When you make those kinds of decisions, it's stressful because you don't know if it's going to work or not. It's really something. And so, but if you decide, I loved it and I don't regret it, and I recommend that students teach because a lot of people are moving away from teaching, and you need good teachers. I had some good teachers. They like I said, when I took a psychology class, he turned me on to psychology. Like, wow, that's amazing. I can analyze myself. I can analyze. I saw someone roll on the floor, and I said, wow, you're 24 years old, but that's a temper tantrum. I said, most kids, folks who stop that after the age of 3, you have a 24-year-old temper tantrum. I said, oh, she's crazy. I didn't know what that was, but now I got a label for it. You're crazy. You have you you have a split personality. You got at least 2 or 3 personalities. I learned that in the classroom. That's what you are. So psychology puts labels on human behavior. That's the greatest thing it does. It puts a label on it, and it shows you that you can change your own life first by applying what you've learned. That's what it's done for me. That's why I've evolved. I saw it.
Did any of the TEPs help you with your college teaching career?
No, because they weren't in my life. When I left Ohio, I went back to Washington, D.C., and I lost contact with them because I was at grad school.
Right.
And the grad school, it's grad school. That's it. There's no day, there's no night that's not punctuated with grad school. So I lost myself in grad school. And when I finished my master's and got accepted in the PhD program, I got lost in that. So it was 10 years. So for 10 years, I disappeared from them. But then when I went out into life hit me with some things that I had to deal with. So that's not an excuse, that's the reality. But as soon as I got somewhat grounded after I finished my degree and stuff, I searched for them one at a time. I searched for them. I searched on the internet or wherever and found them and said, oh, okay. And no, like I said, hey, House, what's going on? It was never like, where have you been and why you disappeared? It was like, we just talked the day before. And we picked up, the beautiful thing, we picked up where we left off. It's beautiful. We picked up where we left off. The last time I saw you, this and that. So no, they didn't. And the organization didn't. But I've always maintained some affiliation with TEP because of what it has done for my life. Those guys. When I was a kid, like I said, I was 17 years old. I had no brothers. I had nobody I could talk to about man-related things. And I was in an environment that was totally different from how I was raised. From urban environment to a rural environment. From an environment primarily with blacks to an environment that didn't have black people in it. But what saved me were the TEPs. That group of guys saved my life. And I tell them that every time I talk to them, you guys saved my life. Every one of you. We sat around, we talked about things. They told me their perspective on things. We laughed about things. They encouraged me. They gave me solid feedback and didn't have to. Zero discrimination, 4 years. I lived in a TEP house. Zero. That's amazing during the
That's
60s.
great.
During the
Ku
60s.
Klux Klan is big in Ohio.
Oh,
So
yes, sir. Yeah, right
you
across from West Virginia. My freshman roommate, his grandfather was one of the wizards. He invited me this weekend. I'm like, I don't think I'm going home with you for the weekend because I may not come back. But yeah, I mean, and think about it. These guys didn't shelter me. They were like around me. If I needed them, I could ask them about things. If they were curious about some things, they asked me in a way, what's it feel like being here? And we had those kind of conversations that were real. So these are, like I said, they were real men. They were real men, and they have been. You look at their careers, they've been real. The things they've done in their careers show that they have the same commitment that they had when we talked about real issues as what, 17, 18, 19-year-old guys. And again, and I can call them if I have a problem. I can call any of them. I need to talk to you. Okay, well, I can't talk to you now, but call me back tomorrow morning. Is that okay? Fine. And I can talk about something that they have no knowledge about, and they'll be real with me. Do you really want to do that? That sounds like it doesn't make sense to me. And I can go with that because I know that they love me and they care for me. That's another thing. These guys tell me they love me. Come on. I'm not gay. They're not gay. These guys tell me I love you. And I go right back, I love you too. And it's rich.